comes with a lot of challenges. It's typically harder to source, there is a lot higher return rate than average, and you end up dealing with a lot more SKUs than an average brand might. This also in turn gives you a lot of advantages. But when looking for a 3PL for your apparel brand, there's a lot of specific things you're going to want to look for to make sure that the 3PL is going to be a good fit for your brand. In this video, we're going to walk through what some of those things are and questions you can be asking your 3PL to make sure you're set up for success. This can be anything from relabeling to tagging products a certain way when they come in, steam cleaning, returns. There's a bunch of different apparel-specific things that only some 3PLs do offer, but as an apparel brand, if you need these things, they can be super valuable to you. So it's definitely worth chatting with your 3PL up front about what things you could possibly need, what things they might be doing for other clients, to see are they going to be able to offer you those specific things that are going to help your apparel brand down the line. A great example of this is, let's say your 3PL is going to be dealing with your returns, right? Well, customer returns something to you. If it has a little bit of a stain on it, a random typical 3PL might not be able to have a process to actually get that stain out. But if you work with a 3PL that has done this before and is open to taking on that process, you're able to now, instead of a piece of a garment that's going to have to get thrown out, you're able to put that back into inventory. And second up is understanding what their receiving capabilities are. Typically, fashion and apparel brands are much higher SKU count oriented brands, and some 3PLs are not necessarily set up to do this effectively. Receiving is really important because it's when all of the inventory gets into the warehouse in the first place, and if that inventory is not in there correctly, you end up with a whole bunch of issues down the line. Imagine the inventory is not input correctly and a medium and a small got swapped, right? Well, now your customer gets it. You're paying to deal with the customer service tickets. Now you have to pay to deal with the return. And so making sure you get it right from the start is huge in terms of saving money further down the line. Receiving also starts to come into play when you start to think about, okay, now not only are we getting 6 sizes of a shirt, but we're getting 30 variations of this shirt times 6 sizes, right? And you end up with so many permutations. Having a 3PL that deals with these sorts of things on the regular is so important because the process is so different for a 3PL that might receive 2 pallets or a pallet of 1 SKU versus 2 pallets of 70 SKUs, and making sure they're labeled properly and understanding how you ingest that inventory into the system and make sure it's accurate and having checks and balances in place. Third, what does the inventory management software look like at your 3PL? All 3PLs use a bunch of different systems, usually to manage the warehouse, print shipping labels, and all of that. But for you as the brand, what you really care about is what sort of inventory insights are you going to be able to get access to, and how up to date are they? Some systems, there might be a day delay. Some are in real time. For you as a brand, you're going to want as much accurate information as you can, especially when it comes to apparel, because you don't want to be overselling. You need to do your inventory forecasting. There's a variety of reasons you need accurate inventory data. But one of the most important is if you have, let's say, 10 in your warehouse, you want 10 to show on your Shopify site or your WooCommerce site, whatever it is. You want that to be accurate so that you're not overselling and having to deal with more customer service. Understanding how your 3PL uses their inventory management system and which one they're using. There's lots of good ones these days, but making sure your 3PL is using an accurate inventory management system is going to be crucial for you as an apparel brand so that you can do your forecasting accurate. You're not overselling products online. I wouldn't say this is a huge problem, but it can start to become one if your 3PL may not be keeping your inventory 100% accurate. The reason this matters so much for apparel brands and understanding how your 3PL interacts with their inventory management system is there's lots of brands out there who might have 3 SKUs and 10,000 units of each. So if you're off by 2 or 3 units in either direction, it's not the end of the world with that much inventory. But when you're dealing with apparel and release-based things and drop-based things, being off by 2 or 3 can be a huge difference if you're only stocking 10, 20, 15 of a certain style. And so understanding how your 3PL interacts with their inventory management system, what sort of access you're getting, and how accurate that data is super crucial. Number 4, how is your 3PL going to handle storage? Typically, 3PLs will bill storage in 2 ways. They will either bill based off of cubic, which is the cubic volume of your products, whether that's daily, weekly, or monthly. Everyone does it a little different. Or bin/location based, which means how many bins or locations are you taking up? For an apparel brand, this starts to matter a lot more. If you have, let's say, 1,000 SKUs versus a brand that carries 5 to 10 SKUs, your storage bill has the ability to skyrocket way more than a brand with fewer SKUs. So as an apparel brand, you want to be hyper aware of this, and typically storage doesn't end up being a giant part of your bill, but it's just something to be aware of and understand how your 3PL is going to manage that so that you don't end up getting yourself into a situation where your storage bill is through the roof and you're sitting on all this inventory. This can take form in a couple different ways. So part of your inventory management, warehouse management system is typically there will be some sort of reporting around stale inventory. So does your 3PL provide this to you? Are they able to get you these sorts of reports so that you can understand what inventory has been sitting here for a long time that's just taking up space? Am I able to either move this out on a sale? Am I able to wholesale it out? Whatever it is, if it's taking up a bunch of bin space, this can start to add up. So just being aware of how many bins you're taking up and how many unique SKUs you have there at a certain time can be super important. And then also, how is your 3PL actually storing it? Do they have an overstock location and a active pick location? Is it just an overstock? Do they spread your items throughout multiple active pick locations? And the reason you want to understand this is typically overstock storage is going to be much cheaper than active picking location storage, right? But if your 3PL is spreading one SKU throughout 3 to 4 active pick bins, now you're getting billed for 3 to 4 of those versus I know a lot of 3PLs bill off of they typically follow the model of one overstock, one active pick bin. This is totally dependent on how a 3PL runs their operations in combination with the order volume and velocity of certain SKUs. And maybe they're keeping it at multiple pick bins because they need that in order to keep orders going out throughout the day. But you're not going to be able to influence how your 3PL stores and manages their warehouse. If you're able to at least understand how and why they're running their operations the way they are, even at a high level, it's going to help you better optimize your costs over time. Number 5, returns processing. Apparel-specific returns processing can definitely get a lot more complicated than a lot of other industries. And the reason for that is there's so many different processes that a given brand or company might want, right? So you might have brand A that comes in and just says, okay, great. If it comes back, we're just going to throw it into an overstock bin and go sell it to a wholesaler. Well, another brand might come along and be like, oh, well, we actually want to inspect this, see if it's open, does it have any damage, blemishes, is there stains on it, and if any of those things, can we fix them, and then can we restock it? What this comes down to is that there's really just a bunch of different process for every different brand or company a 3PL is going to work with, and so you want to make sure that your 3PL is open to taking on your specific operating procedures or SOPs that you want to apply. Depending on what you have arranged with your 3PL, your returns might end up being slightly more expensive to do all of these things. But if you're able to get that unit or garment back into inventory, you're able to sell that again versus having to throw it out. And so what I always think about is it going to be cheaper for me to pay the 3PL to actually get this back in inventory so I can use this piece of inventory to sell it again? Or is it going to be cheaper to throw it out? So in summary, if I was running an apparel brand looking for a 3PL today, those are really the 5 things I would focus on. And those are really coming from specific questions that we get asked all the time from apparel brands looking to work with us as a 3PL. Hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, give us a like. If you have any other questions or things you want us to talk about, leave us a comment below. We will get to those in a future video. And yeah, happy shipping.